MFM, everybody. How y'all doing? I got like an hour or two to kick some stuff off. MFM, who you gonna call Coonbusters? Yes, this is the Angry Black Men's book group. We are back. I am back. I'm a little later. You know, stuff happens. You gotta do stuff. We're gonna keep pushing this out, pushing it out. We are pushing it out. I know y'all. Let me just tell you, it's real. I'm just trying to think. Um, I've got it on YouTube. I'm wondering if I should put it up on Facebook, but that's okay. Mm, Let me see. I've got to get and I want to be able to do my Facebook. Uh, Facebook. I wonder if I can get into Facebook. How is everybody? Let me see. Now I've got folks. It's working, so I might pull this. I just have to see if I can do something. Hold on one moment. I hope everybody's good. Hmm. Okay. I'm going to give this a second. Um, uh, what's the most effective use of this? It's like, let's see. Hmm. Maybe I'll do something else because I'm pushing. This is kind of interesting. Well, let me see. 7. I got like a little bit of time. Um, hmm. So I'm thinking we're on one, two, we're on about 3 platforms. I'm going to go ahead and hook up with Restream. And just, I like Restream is better than StreamYard. StreamYard wants $25 every month, and they only let you get 2 or 3 things. And you see, I can save my money and do Restream. I'm back out of Facebook jail. I'm trying to think because I have folks on my YouTube channel, what's the best use to maximize the audience? Excuse me. It is so cold. It has made me sleepy, but we got some work to do. There's 7 and 6, there's 13. You can't hear me? That's strange. I've got a microphone. In fact, we can put this here. Doesn't bug me too much. I don't want it in front of that, so I bring it down. And it come down some more. Well, let me see. This is the mic. Thing is, if I put my mic there, can y'all hear me? Yes or no? I'm just trying to figure this out. Don't worry. I'm just trying to figure this one out. What gets more most effective? I need a larger table so I can have more stuff, and I'll point my mic this way. I'll do it like that, and y'all can hear me. Everyone can hear. Pump this up some more. Okay. All right. We're at 16 people. We want to get to at least 25. Oh, this is crazy. It is so cold. It is making one sleepy. And I'm not sleepy. And I don't want to fall asleep. I want to get some stuff done. Let me see. I'm wondering, I should do the annoying thing first. So I'm going to start in a second. I'm going to have to stop at 9. I'll be back maybe 10:30, 11:45. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. MFM, who you gonna call? While I'm talking to you, I want to bring something to your attention that you're not hearing about the January 6th. January 6th storming of the Capitol, whatever they want to call it. I want to let you know the gentleman that had on the American flag paint on his face and shirt off and the horns, he's a white supremacist, say some people, who's from up in what, Wisconsin. A lot of these people are actors. They've been brought in. A lot of this stuff we're not being told what the actual deal is. So I want to just tell y'all, reserve judgment because there's some kind of scam going on. And there are a lot of white supremacists. Black Lives Matter. There's a guy from Black Lives Matter that got busted today. He was there. He was one of the people that was nearby when the woman supposedly got shot. With great irony and much to my disappointment, little people like you and I are more interested in knowing what the actual truth and facts are than what the people in the news business are doing. I'm going to ask you to give me a second. I got my psychological warfare book, and I'm thinking of putting some junk on, an easy junk read. So I might just do, because I mean, my attention is, let me see. So I've got so much to do, and so I might just do an hour and stop. But let me just jump in. Let me take my green tea pill, because this energy is a trip. I do not know what's going on with energy. 1 minute I feel charged up, the next second I feel sleepy. So let me take my green tea pills so I feel okay. And we'll get this moving. This is absolutely crazy. The temperature here keeps dropping, it goes up and then it drops. It gets super cold, and I can't explain it to you, but it's like getting knocked upside the head. It's like you're being beaten into going to sleep instead of being sleepy. So let me do this. Give me some nutritional energy. Ooh. All right. Let's get down to business. We're going to go right into psychological warfare. Just want to do a little bit of this. And I'm certain I have a better book. So I don't know if I'm going to devote a lot of time to this. Book one. Ready? Not going to worry about it. Good evening, everybody. Chapter 2 of Linebarger's Psychological Warfare. Just going to do a little bit of this. Get you into the mindset of the people waging war on you. I may do chapter 2 and 3. And, okay, cool. So I got about 22 pages. See if I can skip through this. Psychological warfare in a broad sense consists of the application of parts of the science called psychology to the conduct of war. In a narrow sense, psychological warfare comprises of the use of propaganda against an enemy, together with such military operation measures as may supplement the propaganda. Propaganda may be described in turn as organized persuasion by nonviolent means. War itself may be considered to be, among other things, a violent form of persuasion. Thus, if American fire raids burns up a Japanese city, the burning is calculated to dissuade the Japanese from further warfare by denying the Japanese further physical means of war and by simultaneously hurting them enough to cause surrender. If after the fire raid we drop leaflets telling them to surrender, and the propaganda can be considered an extension of persuasion, less violent this time and usually less effective, but nevertheless an integral part of a single process of making an enemy stop fighting. Neither warfare nor psychology is a new subject. Each is as old as man. Warfare, being the more practical and plain subject, has a far older written history. This is especially the case since much of what is called psychology was formerly studied under the heading of religion, ethics, literature, politics, or medicine. Modern psychological warfare has become self-conscious in using modern scientific psychology as a tool. In World War II, the enemies of the United States were more fanatical than the people and leaders of the United States. The consequence was the Americans could use and apply any expedient psychological weapon which either science or our version of common sense provided. We did not have to square it with the emperor myths, the Führer principle, or some other rigid fanatical philosophy. The enemy enjoyed the positive advantage of having an indoctrinated army and people. We enjoyed the countervailing advantage of having skeptical people with no inward theology that hampered our propaganda operations. It is no negligible manner to be able to use the latest findings in psychological science in a swift, bold manner. The scientific character of our psychology puts us ahead of our opponents wrapped up in dogma, who must check their propaganda against such articles of faith as Aryan racialism of the Hegelian philosophy of history. Psychological warfare is a branch of psychology. Good propaganda can be conducted by persons with no knowledge of formal psychology. The human touch, the inventive mind, the forceful appeal, thing, such as may appear in the writings of gifted persons. Thomas Paine never read a word of Freud or Pavlov, yet Paine's arguments during the Revolutionary War played subtly on every appeal which a modern psychologist could catalog. But war cannot, in modern times, assume a statistical expectation of talent. Psychology makes it possible to be able, but the ordinary statesman or officer to calculate his persuasion systematically and to obtain, by planning those results which greater men might hit upon by genius. What can psychology do for warfare? In the first place, the psychologist can bring to the attention of the soldier those elements of the human mind which are usually kept out of sight. He can show how to convert lust into resentment, individual resourcefulness into mass cowardice, friction into distrust, prejudice into fury. He does so by going down the unconscious mind for his source materials. During World War II, the fact that the Chinese babies remain unimpeded while they commit a nuisance, while Japanese babies either intercepted or punished if they make a mess in the wrong place, was found to be of significant importance in planning psychological warfare. In the second place, the psychologist can set up techniques for finding out how the enemy really feels. Some of the worst blunders of history has arisen from the miscalculation of the enemy's state of mind. By using familiar statistical and questionnaire procedures, the psychologist can quiz a small cross-section of the enemy prisoners and form the results, estimate the mentality of an entire enemy theater of war at a given period. If he does not have the prisoners handy, he can accomplish much of the same end by an analysis of the news and propaganda which the enemy authorities transmit to their own troops and people. By establishing enemy opinion and moral factors, he can hazard a recent forecast of how enemy troops will behave under specific conditions. In a third place, the psychologist can help the military psychological warfare operator by helping him maintain his sense of mission and of proportion. The deadliest danger of propaganda consists of it being issued by the propagandist for his own edification. This sterile and ineffectual amusement can disguise the complete failure of the propaganda as propaganda. There's a genuine pleasure in talking back, particularly to an enemy. The propagandist, especially in warfare, is apt to tell the enemy what he thinks of him or to deride enemy weakness. But to have told the Nazis, for example, you Germans are a pack of murderous baboons and your Hitler is a demented oaf, your women are slobs, your children are half-wits, your litter is gibberish, and your cooking is garbage, and so on, would stiffen the German will to fight. The propagandist must tell the enemy those things which the enemy will heed. He must keep his private emotionalism out of the operation. The psychologist can teach the propaganda operator how to be objective, systematic, and cold. For combat operations, it does not matter how much a division commander may dislike the enemy. For psychological warfare purposes, he must consider how to persuade them, even though he may privately thirst for their destruction. The indulgence of hatred is not a working part of the soldier's mission. To some, it may be helpful, to others, not. The useful mission consists solely of making the enemy stop fighting by combat or by other means. But when the soldier turns to propaganda, he may need advice of a psychologist and keeping his own feelings out of it. May I add that in this struggle of Black people, our feelings are wrapped up in everything. We suck at psychological warfare. We suck. This is why we can get up under Biden and not even look at him. And Biden doesn't really tell you how he feels, but he's cold. Because he doesn't say something to your face, you don't get it. So listen to this. This is the mindset of the people that oppress you. And they'll write it down. This information, anyone can pick this up. Anyone can learn. Anyone can understand that this is where people are coming from. Not to openly show hatred, but to have an objective, to win, to make the other people stop fighting. We've been duped. We try to either be loved or accepted instead of getting what it is we need. It's interesting. Our Black criminals, prostitutes, pushers are 10 times more strategic than our so-called Black educated people, leaders, whatever. They're scum. At least the hooker knows she wants to sell. At least the junkie knows they want to get a hit. At least the pimp knows he wants to get a trick. Why is it that Black people are supposedly intellectuals and leaders don't know what the hell that they want after 150 years of supposed freedom? The psychological warfare to keep us under control has been most effective because we don't fight. We have been defeated psychologically. We have been broken completely. And actually, with a minimal use of violence or coercion. That is the greatest defeat of all. That shows that our oppression as a people is 199% psychological. We had more resistance when Black folks were hung, lynched, and shot openly, when they brutalized in such a way that we can't psych out and deny that it's going on because there's an emotional attachment. He's saying hatred doesn't help a soldier. Neither does love for the enemy. We have a love-hate relationship with people that don't care anything about us, whether it's the people who come and sell things in our neighborhood or whatever. We both love and hate them. We feel that way about the boule. We feel that way about Michael Jordan. He doesn't give a fuck about us, but we're hoping one day he might give us a free pair of shoes or do the right thing. We are caught up in emotion. Instead of being objective oriented with timetables and goals, which is what we do not do, everything is feelings. And this is even more reason why we cannot have a matriarchy. This is even more why Black women who can't think strategically have no business in leadership. All of them. If you're in your emotions, sit your ass down. And weak simp men that think with their penises or they've got to swirl with someone, these are the kinds of people that are often in the positions of leadership in our community that betray us, even unintentionally. And many intentionally, or some are so in love or they've been conquered. We've been conquered through psychological warfare. And by the way, whereas when I was young, I had friends that were Greek. They had a young Greek Congress. They were teaching young Greek kids how to fight and advocate for Greeks. I never knew of any place that I could go when I was young as a Black person to learn how to be an advocate for my own people or myself. You have places for training and developing people even at a young age. and all the other ethnic groups. Not so for black people. And I will say this, one of the most wicked institutions in the black community are the fucked up, jacked up, crooked ass churches that have no use for young people other than when they want to have youth day and they don't want to all look at a bunch of old fat black people. They want to have some young people. In fact, I was at a black mega church. I'll say which one. Mount Enon Baptist Church. It's a mega church which may have 10,000 people, and they had to bribe the young people with money, movies, and pizzas to get them to show up to have a youth day. Every other people devote time and energy to developing and grooming their young people psychologically to compete and wage warfare for the advancement of their group, except for us. It is a crime that we even have suburban areas like Prince George's County outside of Washington, D.C. We have large numbers of black people who make excellent money, and black history and such is not taught in the schools. Doesn't even matter. I say this to you, the richest black county in America, so they think. I met young people who didn't even know who the hell Martin Luther King was. And the richest, so imagine how broke black folks are, say in west side of Chicago, and so forth. Let me keep going. This is why I'm bringing this up, psychological warfare, and it's a function. Finally, the psychologist can prescribe media, radio, leaflets, loudspeakers, whispering agents, return enemy soldiers, and so forth. He can indicate when not to use any given medium. He can, in conjunction with the operations of intelligence officers, plan the full use of all available psychological resources. He can coordinate the timing of propaganda with the military, economic, and political situations. The psychologist does not have to be present in person to give this advice. He does not have to be a man with an MD or a PhD and have years of postgraduate training. He can be present in the manual he writes, in the indoctrination courses for psychological warfare officers he sets up, in the current propaganda line he dictates by radio. It is useful to have him in the field, particularly at the higher command headquarters, but he is not indispensable. The psychologist in person can be dispensed with. The methods of scientific psychology cannot. Further on throughout the book, reference will be made to current psychological literature. The general history of psychology is described in the readable terms in the Gregory Zilberg and George W. Henry History of Medical Psychology. I want to say to you, one of the most dangerous things going on right now in Black America. Hold on. Don't tell me how to speak on my platform. I use whatever language I choose to. Anybody that has a problem with how I communicate, go away. Do not tell me how I'm going to talk. I especially don't want to hear from any woman tell me how. We never tell women how to speak. I've never seen a grown man in my life tell a woman how to communicate. Notice how women are so quick. And that's propaganda. They've been told when a woman gets upset, I don't buy into. I hate it. I resent it. Anyone that dares tell me how I can speak on my platform, which I pay for, out you go. There are 8 billion people. There are billions of people online. I'll find someone else that wants to listen. This is the way I choose to use language. You don't like it, and they had like a surname from another culture. Please, if you're not a Black American or whatever, if you cross me, off you go. This is for Black folks to talk to each other. So if you're a little foreigner with a little issues, you're not wanted. I'm not trying to reach you. You come looking for me. I didn't go looking for you. Let's get the order straight here. I got something to offer. That person has nothing to offer me but empty words that don't matter. And I'll speak as exactly like I feel like speaking. And by the way, it's one of those people with the surname, south of the border type. They would never say that to a man from their culture. Because I'm just going to be honest with you, sisters. Black American men are chumps compared to men in other cultures. They kick behind. I think it's wrong. I never want to treat women that way. But you know what? Those men get respected even in the wrong. We don't get respected in the right. That's insane. Don't you dare. And sisters, this is the Angry Black Men's Book Club. You are privileged to be here. If you don't like how we talk, get gone. Get gone. I'm not begging anyone. I didn't beg that person to come in. I'm not begging one soul. I could care less. And when Buckbreaker goes out by Tariq Nasheed, and there are hundreds of thousands of people, and the film, I will have, what, we have 3,000 people almost? Pretty soon, we'll have 5 or 6 or 7 or 10,000. So it's not for everybody. I'm not for everyone. I mean, I don't have all the high-tech stuff yet, although I'm going to get some. I'm going to buy my podcast stuff. I got someone telling me. But in the interim, there are people that can edit and do better than me. Go and listen to them. Go ahead. I ain't thinking about you. Don't do it. I never tell people how to speak. As long as they're not talking to me directly, insulting me, that's them talking. I've noticed about 3, they're always females who have this idea that they're supposed to tell men how to talk. I'm probably old enough to be that broad's father. And she probably didn't like her father. I don't care. Pork chop feminists, folks who can't handle how I'm going to talk, please go away. You got a problem with how I talk? This isn't a prison. You elected to come on my stream. I didn't go and beg you. Nobody was begged. Anybody, you can't handle it, go away. I watch people smash and destroy property up on the Capitol. I didn't see anybody really criticizing those people. Not really. But I know what it's like to be a black man sitting here in Washington on my street in a car and be told by the police, get in my house. And these people can go into the nation's house and wreck it, and there are people taking their side. Do you get what? So I don't care. To hell with your double standards. To hell with all of your black people. Part of the psychological freedom that I want to impart to black men in particular listening to this, and to supportive black women, is that we have to run our own mind and our own thoughts. We have to speak and think as we feel. Part of our domination and oppression has been we can't even be real about how we feel or see things. We think like that punk ass Obama. Every time he sits and tries to go, what do white people want me to say? You know, part of freedom is running your own mind, having your own thoughts. This guy's describing how to wage war to conquer people. So, and by the way, when I'm reading all of this and there are no expletives, I may read for an hour and not one 4-letter word. No one notices that. I do one. Go ahead. Go away. Listen to this. Propaganda can be conducted by rule of thumb, but only a genius can make it work well by playing his hunches. It can become true psychological warfare, scientific in spirit, and developed as a teachable skill only by having its premises clearly stated, its mission defined, and its instruments put in systematic readiness, and its operations subject at least a partial check only by the use of techniques borrowed from science. Of all the sciences, psychology is the nearest, though anthropology, sociology, political science, economics, and area studies and other specialties have something to contribute, but it is psychology which indicates the need of others. Psychological warfare as a part of war. An infantry officer does not need to study the whole nature of war in order to find his own job. Tradition, military skill, and sound doctrine, these have done the job for him. Sun Tzu, Vegetius, Frederick, Clausewitz, and a host of lesser writers on war have established a place of combat in war and have appraised its general character. How much the traditional doctrines may be altered in the terrible light of the atomic explosion, no one knows.
But through the weapons are novel, the welders of the weapons will still be men. The motives and weaknesses within war remain ancient and human. However novel and dreadful the mechanical expedients adopted to express them. Warfare as a whole is traditionally well defined, and psychological warfare can be understood only in relation to the whole process. It is no mere tool to be used in special occasion. It has become a pervasive element in the military and security situation of every power on earth. The simplest, plainest thing which can be said of war, any sort of war, anywhere, anytime, is that it is an official fight between men. Combat, killing, and even large-scale group struggles are known elsewhere in the animal kingdom, but war is not. All sorts of creatures fight, but only men declare, wage, and terminate war, and they only do so against other men. Formally, war may be defined as a reciprocal application of violence by public armed bodies. If it is not reciprocal, it is not war. The killing of persons who do not defend themselves is not war, but slaughter, massacre, or punishment. That's us, because we ain't fighting for anything, for dignity. If bodies involved are not public, then their violence is not war. Even our enemies in World War II were relatively careful about this distinction, because they did not know how soon or how easily a violation of the rules might be scored against them. To be public, the combatants need not be legal, that is, constitutionally set up. It suffices, according to international usage, for fighters to have a reasonable minimum of numbers, some kind of identification of purpose, which is political. If you shoot your neighbor, you'll be committing mere murder. But if you gather 20 or 30 friends together, tie a red handkerchief around the left arm of each man, and announce that you're out to overthrow the government of the United States, then shoot your neighbor as a counter-revolutionary impediment to the new order of things, you can have the satisfaction of having waged war. In practical terms, that means that you will be put to death for treason and rebellion, not merely for murder. Finally, war must be violent. According to the law of modern states, all the way from Iceland to Yemen, economic, political, or moral pressure is not war. War is the legalization in behalf of the state of the things which no individual may lawfully do in a time of peace. As a matter of fact, even in a time of war, you cannot kill the enemy unless you do so on behalf of the state. If you had shot a Japanese creditor of yours privately, or even shot a Japanese soldier when you yourself were out of uniform, you might properly and lawfully have been put to death for murder, either by our courts or by the enemy's. This is among the charges which recur in the war trials. Germans and Japanese killed persons whom even war did not entitle them to kill. Governments of the modern world are jealous of their own monopoly of violence. Let me repeat that. Governments of the modern world are jealous of their own monopoly of violence. We deal with people who have a monopoly of violence over us, and they're jealous of it. I can hit you, you can't hit me. I can spit on you, you can't spit on me. I can burn your church, you better not even visit mine. There's a monopoly of violence and this unjust power relationship that exists between us and those that rule over us unjustly. And they're jealous of it. And debating with people and telling them about what you've been through doesn't make a person give up this power. They will only understand when you are able to wage the same sort of warfare, psychological and otherwise, to liberate yourself. Right as I speak to you, psychological warfare has been waged for the last 8 months to mass murder us through vaccination. They're now using Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson. They're using black churches, Calvin Butts, Warnock, Chris Rock. All of this is propaganda and warfare in order to cause us to stop fighting and for us to accept death. Right now, the only voice I can think of, and I'm a Christian, baby, that I hear telling the truth about this whole process is Louis Farrakhan. Someone asked me a question about cowardice, Mr. Green. I'm going to take a question here, and I'm going to give you a theological answer. I am not a brave or tough person. I bet you everybody listening to this chat could probably whip the crap out of me. However, there's some things for which I'm willing to fight for and even die for. And I don't start fights. I don't like fights. I don't try to put my hands. I want to be a nonviolent person at all times. I can't assure you how nonviolent I can be if people put their hands on me. I know I could not have been with Martin Luther King because if someone hits me, forgive me, I don't know. My parents made a big mistake because I was raised around Eastern European whites and Arabs and others. And they didn't like the people that didn't like them. And I'm the same. You don't like me, I don't like you. It was a shock to me when I was about 7 years old to understand that Martin Luther King was telling Black folks to get their asses beat by people that hated them. I remember the first time in 1972, it's 5 years after Dr. King. I was about 8 years old, 7, 8, no, it wasn't 8. I was about 7 years old. And Martin Luther King, I saw the people being beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And I can recall feeling basically hatred for Dr. King. Because where I grew up, you could get spit on and beat all day long by white kids, and that wouldn't make them stop beating you. It would make them do more. So I was thinking, what kind of leader tells people to get abused like this? If you said be nonviolent, but to tell people you have to like someone after they spit on you too, it's a bit much. Considering by the time I was 7 years old, I'm aware of Black people murdering each other, stabbing and cutting each other. I've seen such things, the violence that we do to one another. I absolutely couldn't understand how you're going to say, wait a minute, amongst ourselves, we're brutes and bullies and we're terrorists. But then for people who mess over us for centuries, we try to get them to like us when they've not liked us for hundreds of years. That seems stupid to me at 7. It seems stupid to me at 55 going on 56. Now, how do we address cowardice? Cowardice for Black people, and even our love for our captors is, I would just tell you, Black people have a religion that we're not honest about. Black people in America worship white people. White people are our gods. White people are gods, not Jesus, not Allah, not the Most High. I don't care what people tell you. Our people worship those who are able to kill us, deny us. That's who we worship and we fear. Black people are theologically frauds. The Black church is a fraud. Black Muslims, everybody's a fraud because they ultimately worship the power of the people who are able to take lives and give jobs and opportunities. If we believed, now I'm going to talk about Negro Christians, if they really believed that there was an all-powerful God, whether they lived or died, and they stood by their faith, whether someone killed me or shot me, I go to heaven to be with God, but I won't bow down to someone that mistreated me. If people believed in that God, which 99% of the people that you see going to church do not, they're more afraid of the power of white people than being sent to hell by the Most High God they say they believe in. If people believe the scriptures, a lot of the garbage that I'm talking about could not happen. In fact, I'll go further. Fear, from a theological standpoint of the scriptures, fear is satanic. To be afraid and to walk around in fear, go to Philippians 4. We're told not to worry about stuff. And I'm not saying there aren't things that don't scare me, but I just tell you, sometimes God help me overcome my fear, God, and help. Maybe I die. Okay, but if we really believe in heaven that all these Negroes are talking about, wouldn't heaven be better than being a nigger in America? There's a song that this Jewish man wrote called Old Man River. And there's a song that says, you know, I'm tired of living, but afraid of dying. That is the worldview of a black man that worships white people. He's tired of not being loved and included, but he don't want to die either. He's still waiting around for his white gods to love him. He doesn't believe in a Jesus. That means nothing to him. In fact, the only real appeal that Jesus has to many black folks is they think he's white. He's a white boyfriend that the ugly black girl can't get in real life. He's the... We don't believe in that. Our people are bereft of believing in a true, all-powerful God. Since a lot of Negroes claim to be Protestant Christians, it's a lie. I almost never meet people who believe in the Most High. If they did, we wouldn't rob, cheat, steal, and do to one another what we do, right? There's a reason I don't do certain things. I can't speak for anyone else. I believe there's a heaven and there's a hell, and the hell I don't want to go to. I'm more afraid of God than I am of people. But most Negroes are more afraid of white people or others, or afraid of not being bushy, than they are of what's right and what's wrong. So as a result, black people are unethical and collectively immoral. And we are ruled through this collective immorality, which includes fear. Proof of that is, I can just give you an example, and why I talk so horribly about Negro preachers. They're trying to legalize prostitution here in Washington, D.C. And they'll teach it in schools to teach black children to be sex toys to wealthy white tourists. I go begging other black ministers who say they believe in God don't want this for our babies. In fact, I'll say this, which is why I'm very disrespectful to sisters these days. Black mothers to be silent when they want to vaccinate their children with this poison. And no pushback. You could pinch a woman on the titty and get a race riot, but you want to inject and destroy thousands of children, and nobody's got anything to say. They seem to only get upset when it's their children, which are not their children. When the feminists say me too, then all the black women fired up. But what about when Breonna Taylor gets killed? When Anjanette Young gets dragged out of her apartment? Where are these white feminists? In fact, where the hell are black women? Where the hell are black men? So fear is a satanic spirit. Black people are ruled by Luciferian spirits, which we serve through the image of a white people as God. If we saw white people just as people, maybe people who have the ability to kill you, to deny you economic benefit, I'll give that. But to act as if every white person walking along has the key to heaven, and that you have to always kiss behind and serve, and then, but at the same time, every black person's an enemy that you can kill, butcher, slaughter, kill over a bomber jacket or a pair of tennis shoes or some bicycle rims. This fear becomes a justification to never do what is right. I didn't help you, I was afraid. I didn't do this, I was afraid. I was afraid. Fear becomes a type of selfishness, stinginess, immorality that perpetuates the collective injustice and the collective oppression, if we were not afraid, we would not be in the situation that we're in. I want to bring up, and I want to say this to black men, because black men, we're the bitchiest, cattiest, pathetic men I've ever seen in my life. Out west, a group of illegal aliens working in a meatpacking factory wanted more money for their work. They're in the country illegally, and all the Latino men went on strike. They got their wages raised. I can assure you, had the factory been predominantly black, you couldn't have gotten 5 or 6 black men to risk losing that little bit for the next person, because black men have been feminized by fear. It's made black men into bitches with dicks. Nobody wants to lose. I can't help you, brother. Everything is always the same excuse. I'll lose something. We're materialistic, so we fear our gods that are white, and we love the trappings of at least being rich-ass slaves. If you've watched the movie Superfly, and he's trying to get out of the game of selling dope, and he's telling his friend who he sold drugs with, man, I want to be free. I'm tired of killing my own people. Man, we're slaves. I want to be free. I don't want to hurt my other people. And by the way, the black person that has so much fear of whites has no fear of killing every black person that they see. I'll give you a quickie. Used to work for a restaurant. There's a black man about 6'5". Everybody was afraid of him. Huge man, strong man. Do you know the white manager would come and feel that man's buttocks in front of everybody in the kitchen, and that man wouldn't say anything? Not a peep. It's interesting, because the same people that let the white man touch them on their asses, talk about black men, let a white man feel them on their buttocks at work. Call me faggot for being in the university, for being a college student. It's mind-boggling. I mean, I'm gay for going to school. You're straight letting a man feel your ass in front of other people. And it gets better. It gets better. This white gentleman, whose name was Gabe, one day began screaming and cursing at me in front of everybody. And I told him that he was white trash, he was ignorant, he was vile. I didn't respect him. I was only working at that restaurant to get enough money to pay my tuition. I can't wait until my fees are paid. I won't be there. I don't like him. He's nasty. He has, the only thing he's got going for him is that he's not black. I didn't curse at him. And I told him about himself, how he couldn't dress, how he needs to stop buying his shoes from Payless. And I hope he can see his penis from up under his navel and his gut. Yes, I did. That's what I said to him. This was like 1985. And I stormed out. Let me tell you, the same black men who called me faggot for being a college student all began to complain about how I had disrespected the same white man that felt them on their buttocks. We're talking about black folks who've gone to jail. I mean, you hate me for simply being in school. I'm not straight because I read. This white man feels you on your ass. You like him and you hate me. And they would all complain, you need to apologize. You can't talk to him like that. I says, he cursed me out. I've never been to work late, always came to work on time, always did what I was supposed to do. And he hated me for having my shit together. And the black people at the job were angry at me for basically telling the man, you know, I don't respect you, but I work here. Black men, I would think if I was a black dude, maybe I was coming out of jail and I needed the job, and somebody went in on a racist man that was taking advantage of me and I couldn't get another job, I would have liked anyone that kicked them in the behind, because that would have helped me. These people were more interested in currying favor of a person that did not like them because he's white. And black people are idolaters. They're not monotheistic. They worship everything white that they see. White women, blonde hair, blue eyes, and black women too. We hate God. We hate ourselves. I don't even think we want to go to heaven if we think other black people are going to be there. And hell might be appealing because at least some white people will be there. We have been deceived, and we worship the might and the wealth and the power of the people who've gotten it out of our asses after 400 years. Instead of resenting people for taking it out of our asses, we wish the people who did this to us would somehow like us. And I don't hate white people. I will emphasize I do not hate white people. And I would tell you very plainly, white folk all up in my family. But I am primarily, look at me, I like it. I'm a black Indian, or should say I'm a black Aboriginal, a black indigenous African mix primarily. I like me. I wouldn't be anything else. I wouldn't mind being a little darker skin. I love black skin. I wouldn't mind being an inch or two taller, maybe a little more money, but otherwise I like my nose and everything else. And my teeth, until they took them out because I had an abscess, I like what God gave me. Part of the other fear is that black people are ungrateful. We hate God. And we hate the real God. We blame the real God for what our fake gods do. We hate one another. I mean, so black people have a selective cowardice. We're cowardly towards the people we need to be brave towards, and the people that we need to work it out with, we don't. It's interesting. Joe Biden created legislation that caused the number of black women to be incarcerated to go up by 1,200%. All these black women thrown in jail, Joe Biden set that up. And but he's white. Had it been a black man, they'd be beefing. The question here, and I'm going to go back to this book. Does Deuteronomy 28 refer to black people? The parallels are there, Mr. Green. There's so many parallels in Deuteronomy 28. I'm going to take it for right now because I'm trying to figure out how the hell did we as a group have the whole world hate our guts? Everybody hates us. We even hate ourselves, as the scripture describes. There's something to it. And trust me, the Khazarians aren't the ancient Hebrews. They just aren't. Where are the Hebrews of the Bible? Where'd they go? The scriptures say that they went beyond the Nile River. They went west of the Nile. Well, west of the Nile is the Sahel. My family's from the Sahel. They migrated through from ancient Egypt and to the Sahel, and to Nigeria, and all the way over to Senegal. I have family all along the Sahel. When I went to the Sahel the first time as a teenager, people looked at me and told me which tribe I came from, just looking at me. There's a purpose to us, and our history goes back further than slavery, and we are significant. However, if you do not believe that you have the protection and the favor of the Most High, if you somehow see yourself as just some non-white protoplasm to some sort of fuck toy of white supremacy and imperialism, and just we're losers and we should just accept our lot, then you're the kind of sap coon that's part of the problem. I want to say to you when I'm speaking, because I don't have this set up yet where we can call in, but it's coming. When it's coming, we'll be able to call and speak to each other. Well, what real God? Well, I'll just say this to you. For you that are not Christians, I don't get into theological debates. You'll find out in judgment, if judgment really does exist, you'll find out when God says step aside that you're wrong. So for the Luciferian black people who are connected, neo-paganism is at an all-time high in black people. Neo-paganism, all of this anti-belief in the Most High. They're the weakest, sorriest, most pathetic people in our community. I've never seen the neo-pagan Negroes stand up against abortion, stand up to LGBTQ, stand up against pedophilia, or even stand up against white supremacy. The only thing I see neo-pagan coons do is attack blacks who are Protestants. They are sectarian, jackass phonies who have no program, they have no agenda, they're in the little personality cults and they imagine themselves to be gods. And if you're a damn God, why the hell are you listening to me? You can just pray to yourself and solve your problem. So, if you don't get the scripture, that's your problem. In Romans, it says the carnal mind is at enmity with God. In other words, a person that is trashy or of this world can't get the common sense of the Most High. So you're not elected. You're not going to heaven. Enjoy hell. And nobody's going to beg people to wake up. So I challenge all the bastards and bastardesses out there that are neo-pagans. Show me what your movements have contributed to black people in the last 300-400 years. There's nothing there. There's zero. Zero. And in fact, one of the things that in the propaganda, and I'm going to go back to reading, the COINTELCOUNTERPRO and the CIA and all the other people that have waged wars on black people have promoted the neo-pagan emergence in the black community. I repeat, part of the warfare against black people was to destroy any shared faith or common beliefs. They have funded cults and religions to create divisions between people. And our people have stupidly fallen into it. That's all I'm going to say. Make certain that you're not a sucker that I'm making reference to. I've seen a lot of suckers. There are a lot of suckers in our community. And the suckers do come in with some good stuff. They'll tell you, I'll agree with them. When they talk about trashy, no good coon preachers, I'm right there with you. But their solution is, let's go with this neo-pagan cult leader who's just as dumb, or if not worse, than the coon preacher. They go from the pot into the fire. And this is what our people have done. They've gone from one emotional extreme to the other. Wait a minute, maybe just step back. Research for yourself. And I say to all the people, if you're so concerned for you, I don't know who the hell you are. If you want to be in some bullshit, hold on, let me just remove you. See you later. Anybody that has a problem, you've got some stuff where you had a bad experience with religion. That's your personal religion's experience. It's sort of like a black woman that's dealt with bad men and decide all black men are bad because I laid down with a bunch of sorry ass black men. That's your fault. As for any adult person who's had a lot of bad experiences with religion, it's your fault. Once you're no longer forced to go, it becomes your responsibility to seek truth and reality and honesty. If you don't have the interest in it and you like lies, then you'll suffer. Have I seen phoniness in church? I always talk about it. Isn't it interesting the little bastards call in and write me as if I don't trash the hypocrisy in the church? I talk more about that than I do about these neo-pagan phonies, like Jonestown, or what happened with Yahweh ben Yahweh. They're chopping up and killing people. Let's just be honest. You don't have to go to a church to get screwed in some black cult group. And ultimately, if people look to the Most High instead of running after people, you might find the truth. A lot of our people can't handle or don't really want the truth. It's difficult. Truth may make you lonely. Truth may not let you have a posse. Truth may mean that you have to stand out and be alone. I believe in God, but I don't like going to a lot of churches. I don't see the church doing what it's supposed to do for black people. And yes, I don't care. The hecklers don't bug me because I dismiss them. I love the cancel culture. I don't want to talk to everybody. I'd be happy. There were about 90 some odd people. Maybe I have 100 people listening right now. If I could talk to 5 or 6 that are serious, I'm happy. But so I'm not worried. Hecklers, by the way, my friend, if what I said didn't matter, they wouldn't be fussing with me. So there is a satanic spirit in black people, and there's been a struggle over right or wrong. The same way these same folks who are talking about all this neo-pagan stuff, I need to remind them, where was this neo-pagan religion to prevent white people from bringing our asses to America from Africa? Where are they? Just sit down and think about it. What was the religion of the people that sold fellow Africans to Europeans? What did they believe? They weren't Christians. Not saying that Christians didn't do that. Christians are jacked. I never defend people in that. There's a fake romanticism in certain black folks where Africa's perfect. If Africa's perfect, why are their asses drowning in the Mediterranean trying to get to Europe? And don't tell me slavery didn't exist in Africa. Right now, Nigerian gangs sell Africans as slaves worldwide. Even in Philadelphia, Washington, and New York, we have slave trading gangs of Africans right now in America. So Pan-Africanists can kiss my ass. I don't want to hook up with anybody that would sell anybody. I don't want you to sell white people. Sell nobody. I hate slavery for everybody. Starting with our community first. I don't want slavery for anyone. I don't want slavery for women, men, children, seniors, nobody. Be very careful of people who are talking about put Africa on a pedestal, on some romanticism without, they haven't even picked up a fucking newspaper to read and see what the situation is there. I'm not knocking Africa. Africa's beautiful. But right at this moment, my home is here. I'm not in Accra. I'm not in Lagos. Nice places, at least parts. I'm here. 50, 60 million of us here in America. What can we do right now? Trust me. I have people from Nigeria calling me every day about people being murdered and killed and raped and burnt up in churches. And it's Africans slaughtering Africans in Africa who wish they could come here. So the Pan-Africanists make me sick, not because I'm against Africa or working with Africans, but can't we be honest about this? Are black folks so damaged or fucked up in their brains that we can't look at reality? That we can't think or confront truth? There are good and wonderful people in Africa, and there are also wicked people in Africa. There are good black Americans, there's trash black Americans. Had an African brother call me and want me to do a whole bunch of stuff. And I said to him, it seems like you need to convince folks back in Africa about Pan-Africanism instead of talking to me. I get it. Why can't you get that back where you came from? By the way, person trying to get something out of me and don't want to pay me. You're not business people. Basically, that's an African coming to me looking for a slave under the name of Pan-Africanism. What's going on in Africa now, where they're giving it to the Chinese and the Indians and the Germans? Let me get back to this. Let me go back to this. I left here. Governments of the modern world are jealous of their own monopoly of violence. War is the highest exercise of that violence, and modern war is no simple reversion to savagery. The general staffs would not be needed if war were only an uncomplicated orgy of homicide, a mere getting mad and throat-cutting season in the life of man. Quite to the contrary, modern war as a function of modern society reflects the institutional, political complexity from which it comes. A modern battle is a formal, ceremonialized, and technical, intricate operation. You must kill just the right people and just the right way, with the right timing in the proper place for avowed purposes. Otherwise, you make a mess of the whole show, and what is worse, you lose. Why you must fight just so and so, there and not here, now and not then, the answer is simple. You're fighting against men. Your purpose in fighting is to make them change their minds. It is figuratively true to say that the war we have just won was a particular kind of advertising campaign designed to make the Germans and Japanese like our way of doing things. They did not like us much, but we gave them alternatives far worse than liking us so that they became peaceful. They bombed their asses, y'all. Sometimes individuals will be unpersuadable. Then they must be killed or neutralized by other purely physical means, such as isolation or imprisonment. Some Nazis, perhaps the Fuhrer himself, found our world repellent and incomprehensible and died because they could not make themselves surrender. In the Pacific, many Japanese had to be killed before they became acceptable to us. But such is man, that most individuals will stop fighting at some point short of extinction. That point is reached when two things happen. Either the defeated people, listen to this, this is us, either the defeated people may lose their sense of organization, fail to decide on leaders and methods, and give up because they can no longer fight as a group. This happened to the American Southerners in April 1865. The President and Cabinet of the Confederate States of America got on the train at Richmond. The men got off farther down the line, were refugees. Something happened to them and the people about them, so that Mr. Davis no longer thought of himself as President Davis, and other people no longer accepted his commands. This almost happened in Germany in 1945, except for Admiral Donitz. Or the defeated people can retain their sense of organization and can use their political organization for the purposes of getting in touch with the enemy, arranging the end of the war, and preparing through organized means to comply with the wishes of the conquerors. That happened when Britain acknowledged American independence, when the Boers recognized British sovereignty, and when Finland signed what Russia had dictated and Japan gave up. Sometimes these things are mixed. The people might wish to make peace, but may find that government is not recognized by the enemy. Or victors may think that they have smashed the enemy government when the new organization is simply the old one under a slightly different name, but with the old leaders and the old ideas still prevailing. It is plain, whatever happens, wars are fought to effect psychological change of the antagonist. They are fought for psychological end unless the wars are of extermination. Sounds like our war. These are rare. The United States could not find a people on the face of the earth whose ideas and languages were unknown to all Americans. Where there is a chance of communication, there's always a probability that one of the antagonistic organizations, which has already cooperated to the extent of meeting one another's wishes to fight, will subsequently cooperate on terms of primary advantage to the victors. Since the organization is comprised of human beings with human ways of doing things, the change must take place in the minds of specific individuals who operate the existing government, or in the minds of enough other people for the government to be overthrown. The fact that war is waged against the minds, not the bodies of the enemy, is attested by the comments of military writers of all periods. The dictum of Karl von Clausewitz is that, quote, war is politics continued by other means, close quote. It's simply the modern expression of a truth recognized since antiquity. War is a kind of persuasion, uneconomical, dangerous, and unpleasant, but effective when all else fails. An ideology is a system of deep-rooted belief about fundamental questions in human life and affairs. Ideology also plays a part in psychological warfare. A difference in belief which does not touch fundamentals is commonly termed as a difference of opinion. You may believe in high tariffs and I in no tariff. You may believe in one world, I may not. You may support Republicans, I Democrats. Despite these differences, both of us can still agree in dollars as methods of paying income, and marriages as a system of setting up the family, and private property for goods, industrial or personal, and government of the United States, and majority rule, and democratic elections, and free speech, and so on. In our differences of opinion, it is so inclusive that we can agree on nothing political. Our differences have gone from mere opinion into the depths of ideology. Here, the institutional framework is affected. You and I would not want to live in the same city. We could not feel safe in one another's presence. Each would be afraid of the effect which the other might have on the morals of the community. If I were a Nazi and you a Democrat, you would not like the idea of my children living next door to yours. If I believed that you were a good enough creature, poor deluded devil, but that you were not fit to vote, scarce to be trusted with property, not to be trusted as an army officer, and generally subversive and dangerous, you would find it hard to get along with me. It is not metaphysical theories that made the Protestants and Catholics burn one another's adherents as heretics in early wars. In the 17th century, the Protestants knew perfectly well what would happen if the Catholics got the upper hand. The Catholics knew what would happen if the Protestants came to power. In each case, the new rulers, fearful of what they might be overthrown, would have suppressed the former rulers and would have used the rack, the stake, and the dungeon as preventatives of counter-revolution. Freedom cannot be accorded to the persons outside the ideological pale. If an antagonist is not going to respect your freedom of speech, your property, and your personal safety, then you are not obliged to respect his. Martin Luther King. The absolute minimum of any ideology is the assumption that each person living in an ideological uniform area will respect the personal safety and etc. of other individuals in the same area. In our own time, we have seen Spaniards get more and more mistrustful of each other until years of ferocious civil war were necessary before one of the two factions could feel safe. Spain went from a republican unity to a dictatorial unity in 4 years. In neither case was it unity perfect, but it was enough to give one government and one educational system control of most of the country. In other countries, the world may vary in degrees of their ideological cohesion. Scandinavia seemed serene until the German invasion brought to the surface cleavages latent and unseen, which made quizzling a quizzling. Russia, Italy, Germany, and various other states have made a fetish of their ideologies, have tried to define orthodoxy and heresy in such a way to be sure of the mentality of all their people. But most of the countries of the world suffer from a considerable degree of ideological confusion, of instability of basic belief without having any immediate remedy at hand or even seeking one. Sounds like black folk. Education is a process usually institutionalized by which the people are given an area to transmit to their successors, to their own children, the purely practical information needed in modern life, together with a lot of other teachings designed to make good men and women, good citizens, good Christians, or other believers of them. In a democratic states, this process is ideological only in some parts of the curriculum. Elsewhere in the field of opinion, the government seeks to control the ideology only negatively through laws concerning obscenity, blasphemy, subversion, and so on. In the states which are ideologically self-conscious and anxious to promote a fixed mentality, a process of education is combined with agitation and regulation so that the entire population lives under conditions approximating the psychological side of war. Heretics are put to death or are otherwise silenced. Historical materialism and Marxist objectivity is set up by the folk or fascismo or Yamamoto de Damayashi, or the New Democracy is set up as a touchstone of all good and evil, even in unrelated fields of activity. Education and propaganda merge into an everlasting indoctrination. And when such states go to war against states which do not have propaganda machinery, the more liberal states are at a disadvantage for the sheer lack of practice in the administrative and mechanical aspects of propaganda. A good example for us. I meet white children who are taught that they're white and superior from a very early age. I meet black folks whose parents never talk about race. So when they go up against a situation, they are incapable. They are incapable of defending themselves psychologically when they go off to college because they've never had to think about countering issues of race or injustice. Our people are not educated to know who they are, what they're about, what they believe, who their people are. And other people at least have a mythical concept of who and what they are and who their enemy is. Our people are told everybody's our friends. Yet we've got bruise marks from our skull down to our feet and everybody likes us. This is insane. Look at this. I'm wondering. Psychological warfare and public relations are different in the direction in which they apply. Psychological warfare is designed to reach the enemy. Public relations is primarily to reach the home audience. Both reach neutrals, sometimes confusingly much. In some nations, two functions were combined in a single instrumentality, as in the Japanese Johu, Yoku, the American Army, Navy positions. Public relations were based on the ideas that the news should be as complete as military security may permit, that they should be delivered speedily and interestingly, that it should enhance the confidence of the people in their armed services, and the tenor should not aid the enemy morale. I'm going to just stop here for 1 second because I'm almost there. This is about done. Let me see. I'm going to come back to this, but I've got this question here. One question is, Marcus Garvey didn't blow up in Jamaica. Why would Marcus Garvey blow up in Jamaica? Jamaican folks have a highly color-struck, class-bound society. The people who still run and control Jamaica, Jews, Syrians, high yellow, browns, whatever, dark-skinned Jamaicans that are of working or average classes, the best chances are to either leave the country, move to England, go to Canada, go to America, go to Panama, get off the island. Marcus Garvey absolutely had no value to most Jamaicans, except he's now a tourist icon. Real talk. Marcus Garvey, a great man. Marcus Garvey reached his apex in power and influence among Black Americans whose backs are against the wall in a way that most other people's are not, and particularly in the diaspora, which is why Garvey was able to move here. And Garvey is, and all the other people, but we need to remember the Garvey movement was not focused on developing Black Americans. And I'm not trying to attack Marcus Garvey, but in reality, any movement that's telling us to go somewhere else, but is not building up our capacity here, even if it's well-meaning, undercuts our people. You could not get a Black American to go to any other country in the world and get the kind of support that Black Americans gave Marcus Garvey, because we tend to look at what you look like and what you say. Other people don't care what you look like and what you say because you're not one of them. One of the greatest weaknesses that people who I call DAFTA, descendants of Aboriginals and forcibly trafficked Africans in the Americas, that way I can include both heritages of the Black people that were here before folks were brought as indentures and later as and chained up. We have not agreed to be a people. Fundamentally, one of the greatest cowardice and traitorous, despicable things about us is we have not decided to be a people. We're bitches. We're waiting to be integrated and assimilated into by hostile people. Most of us are afraid to stand alone. If 5 to 10% of our people, and let the 90% go, decided that we are who we are, we feel like we do, and we started working together, the other 90% would have to run to catch up with us, and we'd have to tell them they have to wait in line for us to accept them. We have not decided to be a people. And evidence of that is this fraud called Kamala Harris. It is a goddamn disgrace on Black people, in particular Black women, that this phony, this fraud, this woman who's a Brahmin, a Tamil Brahmin that does not like even the untouchables in India, who comes from a family that oppresses people, for her to be introduced as Black. The Black Greeks, the Boule, in fact, the so-called Black bourgeoisie and the other leadership has worked to retard the development of a true concept of us being a people. I repeat, the Boule, all of the assimilationists, all the people that want us to just be everything but who we are, even in the churches. You know, I remember I was going to a church and I stopped going. But, you know, this coon preacher who's now dead, thank God, got up and says, you know, wouldn't it be nice if we all were together and there was no more Black churches? We all just came together. And this man who's paid by Black people, pampered by Black people, has contempt for the fact that there's at least an institution that gave his ass a job and a house, and he somehow wants to be hooked up with people who don't want him. We must become a people, or we're going to die as individuals that were part of a people that decided not to exist. We actually have signed our own death warrant collectively. Yes, we have. These people who are descendants, FBA, B1, all of that, as long as we refuse to be a people, we've signed our own extermination warrant. We're finished in America and everywhere. We will be destroyed if we continue to pretend that we're not a unique people with our own history. And until we grow up or we're destroyed, the Marxists are not going to save us. The socialists are not going to save us. The conservatives are not going to save us. The Catholics are not going to save us. Islam isn't going to save us, not as a people. Somali Muslims are Somali Muslims. They're not Muslims first and Somali second. I mean, Black folks, they become Muslim, then they throw the Black in the trash. That's almost as bad as Negroes are the Catholic first and Baptist first. Now we got crescent coons. Mecca first, Black last. Or like the Vatican first, Black last. We must be a people, unified, or we'll be a destroyed people divided. There's no way around it. There's a fear and a terror of Black people becoming and accepting ourselves that we exist. As long as we pretend that we just happen to be some brown protoplasm, some sperm that dropped out of slave masters, so long as we pretend that we're an accident, we're freaks of history, and that we don't have any special purpose, then we're basically roadkill. White supremacy wins every day that we pretend that we're just individuals who are not white. Anything that doesn't teach you that you're part of a collective group, we get dogged by the police collectively, mass incarcerated collectively, we get gentrified collectively, but when it comes down to resisting, it's just a handful and the rest of you are cowardly bitches that don't stand up, or you're pork chop feminists, or you're simp pimps that swirl. We have to be a people with some rules and principles. And by the way, there's nothing more pathetic than the fact that there are a trillion different ways to describe people. And like, forgive me, little jackass Negroes are the Moors. Everybody has to say all this Moorish shit to be able to get along with some niggas that can't get a movement going. To hell with coming up with these off-the-wall concepts of who we are based in fantasy. So part of the psychological warfare that's been waged on us is that to keep us from ever becoming a people. Anyone, anything that can get us to wake up and think and sense ourselves, they brought in the drugs, they brought in the sexuality, they brought all these things. All of this, the whole system, the whole psychological war against Black people right now is to destroy our sense of worth, humanity, and collective reciprocal responsibility to one another. This is what it's about. The drugs, the weed being legalized. Now they want to legalize cocaine. I mean, sexuality everywhere. All of this stuff. These things did not emerge, my friends, until after 1965 with COINTELCOUNTERPRO. Something had to stop the emergence of this other nation within the nation. We have to do our own social engineering. If we choose not to do this, it's our fault. Anybody that understands me, I'm not telling you, you don't have to listen to me ever again. It's okay. But we should be thinking about how we can come together and cooperate together as best we can. You want people to stop messing with us? Form a fist. Like this, if I hit you like that, there's a difference. We can't make it without one another. And everybody we don't want to be unified with. I don't want to be unified with bullshit. I want to be unified with people that are serious. Someone called me and they have all these problems and you can't figure out your sexuality. I don't have time for it. Now is not the time to convert people. If you can't figure out what the damn time it is, later for you. But people that know what time it is, find a few other people like you and try to figure out what you can do. Whether it's a garden, whether it's a business, whether it's a gun club, whether it's a credit union. And if more people with the don't try to convince anyone. Anybody, look, I don't even have to talk to a certain family. If they don't get it, they've known your whole life, they don't hear you, to hell with them. Find the few and work with them. Okay. On Saturday, I do a sermonette for SALT, Salvation and Liberation Temple. Yes, I believe in God. Yes, I curse, and I'm going to keep cursing. It's very effective, too. A handful of us have decided as Black people who love God, who embrace our indigenous, aboriginal heritage and so forth, what can we do to help one another? If it's just prayer, if it's just counseling, if you need a lawyer, if you need this, can you know someone that does that? And we collectively, as a small community, support each other. I have learned, even with our small group, that there are many people who aren't ready for community, either because they want to take and they don't want to give, or they want to ride without making any kind of contribution, even a prayer. I mean, it's just gimme, screw you. But I found a few, and we only need a few. Nat Turner didn't have many. Denmark Vesey didn't have many. Frederick Douglass didn't have many. Dr. King didn't have many. It doesn't take. Our community is so incredible that just a small percentage of thinking Black people could make a major change in our community. You can't save everybody. We've been historically and uniquely put at a disadvantage of being up against the most militarized, best armed, best funded people of all times. But we could do something, even if it just was resistance to this campaign to kill us with this Moderna and Pfizer. We could say no to this. If we defeated the pharmaceutical corporations, it's a victory. If we can fight against their effort to legalize pedophilia, if we could fight against GMO to get this poisonous food out of the stores, if we could fight against unsafe drinking water, if we could do what you can do. See, Garvin, these other Black people, no disrespect, I'm so sick and tired of so-called Black leadership, visionary people talking about eating steak and cheese on the moon. Like, let's all go back to Africa and create a new society, and you can't sweep up the trash and the shit on the block you live on. Let's think about what you can do, where you are, as you are. It's a shutdown. Schools closed. I can impart some information. I got a computer. I got I can do that. You can drop me a few bills. Shoot, I'm trying to capitalize to get the podcast equipment so I can do this even if I'm not on camera. If I can educate, enlighten, share, get a book, get people to think, this is the contribution I can make. Everybody can do something that wants to do. Everybody. Everybody can make a contribution. Everyone can do something that wants to. I can assure you, the same way someone messed with my computer today, the same way that YouTube has been taking my videos down, the same way that we've got about 90, almost 100,000 people have been listening to what I'm saying beyond the jokes and the vulgar language. Some of what I'm saying makes sense to someone. Certain books people haven't seen or heard, or information that should have been presented. I don't have everybody's books, but I'm doing good for what little bit I have. If I told you I have thousands of books in storage, I can't keep them around. But what I can do is get people to think. If I succeed in getting one person to read a book, if I succeed in getting 10 people to read or to think or to talk or to dialogue or to do something other than sex, sports, bullshit, and rap, I'm doing a great job. If that's all I can do, that's what I'll do. Something is better than nothing, but I think what we're talking about in terms of psychological warfare, I got so many books here. I got to do my Bible study in a few minutes, but I'm going to come back. We're going to do a couple of hours more. I'm going to see if I can do about 5-6 hours tonight and just read and bring other stuff. I got to talk to y'all about the movie business and everything that I can share. And as I run across books or titles of things, we push it out. The scriptures say the people of the Most High perish for lack of knowledge. People need to understand since 1954, there's been a systematic destruction of black teachers in America to remove instruction and knowledge from our people. Even now, they've been firing black teachers, Chicago, Washington, everywhere. Our people don't even have information. I meet people, why don't you do this book? I did it. So what? You've heard of the black bourgeoisie before, but other people have not. So I'm making a commitment, and I thank all the people who support it. Keep the contributions coming. I have a brother. I just sent someone who, believe it or not, people blessed me with some money. I sent someone some dollars. I need to have Dorothy Gaines come on. I want to have, I'm going to probably have the brother come on tonight and talk about Delaware. He couldn't do it the other day. I want to talk to you about Biden. And there's a missing black man. I think he's been lynched in Delaware. There's a news blackout. Y'all need to know. I want y'all to understand that I'm sincere. I don't want to be the leader of black people. Like my little fellowship, we may have 4 or 5 people. I'm not boasting. I'm a Harvard graduate. Not that that means everything. But with that pedigree, I could have one of these mega churches and manipulate black. I don't want to do that. I like black people. In fact, I love humanity. I'm not mad at white folk either. I don't like for people to mistreat me. I won't mistreat you. I want to do my part to help my people. I care about my friends in Africa and in Brazil and all over, but I got to help mine here. I want to say to you, in particular, to the confused people, wake up. And it's going to get more challenging. Keep your eyes peeled on Washington. I want to say to y'all, I believe you're going to have Trump again as president for another 4 years. And eventually there's going to be a fight. I think they're going to run Pence. They want to put Pence in, but I'm going to just tell you, Trump's going to win again. Believe this, y'all. Believe this. And I see Trump as a good thing because Trump has black folks fired up. I see black people doing things for self because they don't believe anybody else will do it. This is the best thing that ever happened. I can't wait for Biden to be put in jail. I want to encourage you, anybody, you can email me at wrandyshort@gmail.com. That is my Zelle and my PayPal. My Zelle and my PayPal is wrandyshort@gmail.com. I will send you the pictures that I have of Biden's son looking like he's going to have sex with the child, and Nancy Pelosi's son with the girl tied up. There's a big pedophilia scandal, which I need to understand about Trump. Trump has fought against the Luciferian ritual rape murderer cult that's running stuff. He ain't perfect. He's got plenty of problems. The difference between me and the coons that worship Biden is I'll tell you what I don't agree with about Trump and what's wrong with Trump. When I talk to niggas about Biden, they won't concede that he ever did anything wrong. I just hate Trump. Isn't it interesting? I can tell you what I don't like about Trump. I can get to tell you what I can't stand about Republicans, what I hate about Republicans. But I get these niggas with their Democrats, they're gods. Because being a Democrat is a way for certain black people to be white. That's why they're so loyal to the Democratic Party. It's as close as they can get. And you see the same thing for Republicans. You shouldn't want to be. In fact, I'll tell you something. You should have no other God before the Most High. As long as white people are gods, we don't have the favor of the Most High. As long as we worship people, as long as we're ungrateful to God for how we look and who we are, we cannot be blessed. We can't prosper. Every people can come to America and consolidate around who and what they are. And we sit up in a morass of hating ourselves and resenting ourselves, giving our money to everybody that hates us. And we think that's a recipe for success. It's a recipe for slow genocide that's speeding up. I've got to go for now. I'm going to get back with you between 10:30 and 11. Excuse me. These books are old and they're dusty and they make you itch. Sorry. So I'm going to come back. I still got books on eugenics, feminism, LGBTQ anthropology. Dr. King, I can't wait. And the good thing is what I can't do tonight, we're going to try to kill Friday. But the Angry Black Men's Book Club, please share this. Pass this around. Send me some books or book titles. I'll try to get to, I got so many things, man. Oh my God. But I hope we keep the content going. My people, read. The author of Psychological Warfare. And this isn't the best book. This is a dated book, but it is Psychological Warfare. And I've got some other psychological warfare books. Let me see if I can find them. It's by Paul Linebarger. Paul Linebarger. This is a dated book. Paul Linebarger. Linebarger spelled Linebarger. This is from the Infantry Press Journal. This is a U.S. military book teaching folks how to go to war. I've got other such books. I want to tell everybody, I was talking about this earlier. If you missed it, this is a book that you might be able to find by Kitson. This book is called Bunch of Fives. This is the man that started the asymmetrical gang, counter-gang warfare. This is the killing that you see blacks doing to each other in South Africa and other places, and even in America. This white man is the originator of it. Get yourself a copy. You don't have to read the whole book. Okay? This is about how he got the Mau Mau's fake gangs of Africans to get Africans to slaughter each other for the benefit of white supremacy. This was a book. It's by Kitson. Take notes, guys. I'm in hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. No one just gave this to me. So shoot, y'all can drop me a piece. A Bunch of Fives. And he has other books. And this is the man that taught white people around the world how to get black people to kill one another. And I want to just say this to you. A lot of black folks run around saying, man, the oldest people in the world are in Kenya. And from the Odarge Gorge in Kenya, without knowing that the anthropologists, the Leakey family worked with British intelligence so they could learn how to hunt down and kill the black men and women fighting for their freedom in Kenya. Anthropology is weaponized and it is used to kill us. This book right here that you can get your hands on, I'm going to try to read from this, by Lee D. Baker from Savage to Negro. And I've got to get this book on anthropology and weaponized anthropology. I have the book somewhere. But they literally, Obama's mother was an anthropologist that helped do profiles of people to be murdered and assassinated in Indonesia and in Pakistan. Obama's CIA, y'all been fooled, y'all been played, y'all been bamboozled. I'm going to see what I can do to look up anthropology and race and how they use weaponized anthropology. In fact, they use weaponized anthropology in Rwanda and in Congo to get people to murder and kill one another. Psychological warfare. They've even used religion. And we need to be very careful. The same way they got black people working for Jim Jones to murder black people for the CIA. You got a lot of black folks, psychological warfare, that kill black people for the police department, or they kill black people through how they don't provide medical care, how they don't teach in schools, or Even the black church right now, the mega churches are weaponized religion against black people. To teach a people who've been robbed for centuries that if they're not rich, God doesn't like them. You'll never see black preachers telling broke ass white people that God doesn't like them. That's why they're poor. There is absolutely a complete war for our minds. We have to engage in a struggle to free ourselves psychologically. No matter what you think about Malcolm X, no matter what you think about Malcolm X, one of the greatest things that he talked about was ending the psychological enslavement of our people. This must happen. I've got to check out here. My fellowship is waiting for me. MFM, everybody. Who you going to call? Coonbusters. Don't be a calf can. Don't be a Dan. If you can drop some bucks, all I'm doing, if you look, like I showed this book earlier, and I may read some of it because it shows how religion can be used. This is Apartheid, South African Nazism. I got a couple of books. Thank you when y'all drop bucks on me. In fact, I got Harold Cruz's Crisis of the Negro Intellectual. I'm going to be reading from it as soon as I get it. I am using the resources that y'all send me. As you can see, it's not on my wardrobe. I'm using that to buy books and get other equipment and things to enhance using this as a means to share. I thank you all. God bless you all. I got to get out of here. I will be back. Love for everybody. Respect one another. Care for one another. Learn. Please wake up. Please unify. We need each other and we need God. All right. I'm out. Talk to y'all later. Bye. See y'all later.